I will call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic state, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with justice for all.
Sarah, can you do roll call, please?
President Bucher.
Here.
Trustee Polly.
Here.
Jeff Albrecht.
Here.
Ross Schwartz.
Here.
Brian Filiatro.
Here.
Sharon Potterley.
Here.
Thank you.
Did we meet open meeting compliance?
The agenda was posted online and here in Village Hall, Friday, January 2nd.
Perfect. We'll move into public comments. Please address the committee. There will be no back and forth discussions. Mr. Woodkey, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Jim Woodkey, 22416 88th Street, Salem, Wisconsin. Just kind of wanted to reiterate, I think that the EDC is trying to do some good things, but I think the main purpose in my mind of an EDC is to be promoting our current businesses and then trying to recruit other businesses and encourage them to relocate here. Because that's my mind what an economic development committee does. You can take the economic development committee and tie it into a whole variety of things going on. But there's planning and zoning for some things, there's parks and rec for other, or whatever you might want to look at. So that's my thought. And for that, hopefully we can move in a good direction where we can do good things for the village.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go into committee business. Discussion and possible action on the following. 6.1, complete discussion on Wisconsin Innovation Grant and allowable services under that program in order to make recommendations to village board. So this item is in reference to some of the agenda item requests I received. So we can have a discussion on those. However, it needs to be general in scope and not get into the weeds.
Sure. So I think if I understand correctly, this particular line item would be separate from the road consortium discussion, or just other additional ideas, right?
Correct. And correct, yes.
So as far as that, there are some thoughts that basically the innovation grant, the center of that requires multiple municipalities coming together, agencies, and then there's some kind of shared combined services, right? To then hopefully save money. So where could that possibly apply? And there's potential, say, for every community does sewer lining, right? So that could be a really big one. Every community does a certain amount of sewer cleaning, sewer video, and a lot of these companies. So I've experience in those lining, cleaning, and video of sewers, and they come from pretty far away. Where they're located, and if they were going to come to a region and be able to do more. So as an example, again, mostly where could this apply? Well, you'd want to have items that we could put out in bulk or in large purchase with other communities. So that's maybe one thing that I can come up with off the cusp. But then separately, we'll be talking about the road consortium next and when the ideas we have in there. So I guess that's what I have to offer. I don't know if anybody else has some thoughts on some additional items that this could work with.
Well, I think we have one.
Discuss that now.
We took a look at the email, I guess it was sent out by Sarah and also by Jay on what innovation grants might look like and where the highlights might be. And leading that off was emergency services, fire protection, then into law enforcement, administration, et cetera. So we thought that, again, where could we make a difference? And we took a look at fire services and where that might go for us. So Ross and I had met with the fire department, met with Jay, and what we had what we had done was met with them and see if there might be some opportunities in the fire department to look for an innovation grant. So Ross, you want to take it from there?
Well, yes, it was a nice meeting, and thanks Jay for as part of the staff to come in and be part of that meeting, and I think that was nice. And of course, Chief Carr. But it's really just the beginning for us on this, and we're just getting started as an initial meeting. We did call and talk to Matt Gronke from Randall Fire Department. They've already applied for the grant, so they're going to have a meeting soon, and we asked that we would, like to be included as part of that. So that would be our hope to move forward in that direction. But again, it's very early on this.
Yeah, and again, there's no decision. All we're doing is trying to look at opportunities and see if they might go forward, understanding that, these are board decisions that would be made later on. We have really nothing at this point in time other than, maybe this would be items that we could take a look at. Also administration wise, staffing, payroll. If we can bring these things forward, it helps with the budget. It helps with our efficiencies in the village, and it helps bring in businesses. So we think that ties in pretty easily.
I understand that. Some of those items are not EDC related items. Those are village board and administration items. So, if you have thoughts on that, please send them to our administrator. As far as EMS and law enforcement and fire, we did previously work with other communities on that. We had something that we had put together. And now that we have Mike on board, I don't know that, and I will check with the attorney, but I don't know that that technically lies with this board. I think that lies with our administrator and the village board first and foremost. But we can look into that.
I mean, with this,
As far as staffing and payroll
Yeah.
and all of that, that is administration and village board. It is not economic development.
Okay, do you wish us to drop this entire thing then?
I do not. I do not.
so this would be advisory to the board. So I think I take.
And I understand that. I
if
already
I-
have talked to legal about these items.
Okay.
I was told to keep this as a general discussion in scope on ideas only and not to discuss it further than that. Because those, again, our village board, those are everyday things that we do here that every municipality does. That lies with the village board and administration, not this
So
committee, unless it is assigned by the village board.
if I could have the floor.
Okay. Just to clarify though, we need to know if we should go forward with what we're doing or drop.
I think that I will check with Ramsey on that and ask his advice. If he feels that that is within the purview of EDC, we can discuss that at village board level and then assign it to the EDC. If it does not, then you can certainly share those thoughts and ideas with the administrator. And that's how that will move forward.
Are we not to pursue grants?
No, you are. You can talk about the grant and what the grant, but as far as all of the
Information gathering we
The-
should do?
only on some things belong with this board. So I will check with Ramsey on that.
Okay, just to make it clear, we have involved the administration on this, so.
Right, Jay. Today's Jay's last day, so we'll have to take that up with Mike.
So I have I can certainly appreciate the information that you received, Chair Booker. I think board down to committee is not the concept of the community. It's committee and with a uh, not recommendation, but an idea to boil up to the board. So because the board shouldn't be creating from start. So I guess when you talk about the baseline of the Wisconsin Innovation Grants, everything that he mentioned is what that's potentially for. So it would be our idea as a group, sending it up to the board, and then the board would go, ooh, we like that, or ooh, we don't like that. So I have a different take than what you how you come to understand it. I do appreciate, Jeff, that you worked with Jay, and I kind of look at that as being a transition and working with Mike. So along those lines, possibly when I was talking about like the sewer lining and that's also something, or sewer cleaning or video that the village does every day, including the road work the village does every day. That those all fall in the same description. So it's a little bit confusing, the parsing of the.
Sure. And I agree. So we can talk to Ramsey and ask for a written recommendation on if it should be with this committee or if it should not be with this committee. I'm just letting you know that my initial conversation with him when I received those agenda items was that we could talk about the grant as the grant, because this committee can talk about grants. We can't get into the weeds on the other things that are things that the village, those are administration and village board decisions. So that was his conversation with me, but I will ask for further clarification from him.
So I have another question. And is this Ramsey's decision or the board's decision? Isn't this
I think
board
Ramsey is the
decision?
legal advice that we go to. And so, I think that when you're talking about things like HR, IT, payroll, staffing, those are not economic development committee roles to take on. Those are village board and administration decisions. And I think that is what the premise of that conversation was. We can appreciate that you're giving ideas to use the innovation grant to maybe enhance those. But those projects should not, from what my understanding, be discussed on this board, on this committee.
Right.
And as far as the EMS and fire, because we had already worked on that, we had already signed the MOU with, multiple other communities that already exists. And if we want to revive that, I will ask him if that is something that should happen at this level, or if that should happen with the administrator. Not saying that members of this committee couldn't, not in this capacity, help, because that certainly could help.
I think we could leave it. I think we're creating some confusion here, and it's a grant and it's going to cross into areas that we're not a decision-making body.
I understand that, but we
gather
also have
information.
an ordinance, which is why I sent it to all of you to read. We have an ordinance, and the premise of that ordinance is for economic development, not administration duties.
So when we get a grant from the innovation grant, we bring revenue into the village. We create maybe a consortium which reduces costs or reduces burden on the community that is part of economic development. And I think it's pretty clear in our bylaws that grants is something that we should go after. So I guess there's some confusion here.
Okay. Well, we'll ask for further clarification on that. Is there anything with the innovation grant in particular to economic development with businesses or the like that you guys have ideas on that you would like to put forward.
So in relationship to the grant.
Mhm.
So just by the nature of the grant, so it wouldn't work. If to be like, if say you want to go down, I'm thinking you're leaning towards like, say, what could we do downtown Silver Lake? Because we'd have to join services with another community. So that's why the confines of the scope of the grant to get the money is bringing different agencies together to remove duplication of services. And that's the premise of getting the money. So it's going to be things that we do that also other communities do that we get together. And those things are like what Jeff listed off. So that's as far as where else we could use that grant. No, but separately working on attracting businesses or things like that. Then I think we just look for other types of funding if that's what we were looking. I think there's like some rural
Mhm.
community development grants that might fall into that range that would be separate from this grant, if that's what you're asking about.
Mhm. And it could be that, we discuss the innovation grant and those items at a board level. And like I said, from my understanding, the board can then assign that to the Economic Development Committee if we feel that that's something that this committee should work on. But again, I will ask for some clarification from him on that. And we can certainly put an agenda item under just generic, grant opportunities so that if there are others, we can certainly
Yes, it's just,
talk about them.
yeah, it's just the way that this one is set up is.
Yes, well, that's because that was part of the agenda request that I had received. Okay, we'll go on to 6.2, road consortium update and next steps for recommendation to village board to move forward. I know you guys have been working on this. It's my understanding that there is a meeting next week on Monday, and maybe you can give a little bit more insight into what that meeting is. But as I explained to trustee Pulley before the last board meeting, this hasn't gone to the village board yet for approval to move forward, so we need to do that. We have to present this in some capacity to the board to get permission to move forward in that process. And then we still have to have legal review. So if you guys want to give your update on that so that we can decide how we want to proceed.
Sure, I guess I might start with how your description of how it needs to proceed is and where we're at. I think those are two real different things. So on the 12th, the village board themselves are part of the invitation to go and hear about what this group is trying to put together. And then that same thing is that then will be made, all the communities that are interested. There's at this point, I think, close to 12 different communities from Walworth, to Bristol and in between that are interested in potentially getting in on this. So there isn't actually anything at all to actually vote on yet, but starting on the 12th of that meeting with that presentation, then the same package, the same information for all communities to give consideration to and come back to the board will happen. So just to maybe try and bring these two thought processes together to understand that there isn't anything to agree to yet, but on the 12th, there'll be a presentation on what was been able to come together so far. And then that'll look the same for all communities. And then we can see if, as a village through our board, if we're interested to.
Did those invites go out yet?
I don't think they went. We just had this meeting last night in regards to the next step. So I don't think that they've come out yet, but both Mike and Jay were at that meeting with us last night. And so we were basically putting a framework together. What does this look like? What kinds of things are going to be necessary? And this is for the consortium to even occur. So again, it's pre our board, but we're almost there. Not a whole lot different than what I conveyed last time.
And you guys had a meeting last night?
Yes, we had a meeting at 4:30 and Jay and Mike were both there. And what we're discussing is the framework of how this might work. Jay offered a tremendous amount of help on the grant aspect of how to transfer the services. I spent some time today with the Department of Revenue, digging into that deeper, trying to make sure that there is a path. And Monday's meeting is really just an introduction for the communities for consideration to even whether it's something that they would even consider to move forward with. So it's not there yet as far as the board decision, but it is at the point where the board needs to become educated about it and then decide whether or not this village would want to get involved in that.
Okay. And what if board members cannot be present at the meeting? How will the information be available? Is it going to be recorded where we could watch the recording?
That wasn't discussed at the meeting, but ultimately, I think, we'll be able to, have Mike potentially report back. There also will be a PowerPoint that's going to be a PowerPoint that'll be shown at that meeting, and then that's going to be available for the communities to take
So
back
do you
to.
think that's something that we should put on our next board meeting as an agenda item to show the PowerPoint and discuss it? So I can add that to the.
I don't know
agenda.
if that in itself is going to be helpful. I think
Yeah.
staff and board members that can make it should be there to at least be introduced to it. There
Right.
will be changes to this. This is not a
It's not
final deal by any stretch. It's going to require, quite a few communities to work together, and that could be very challenging.
But I think it'd be important any board member that can make it attend, and then there's going to be question and answers and be a better understanding, but there's still, it's still not a fully, developed concept. It does pretty much land in creating an entity, which is kind of the requirement for this grant to be able, for the communities working together. So, it's not exactly as finished as it, I think that would
But-
lend itself to your,
Right,
seeing the
but do you think
presentation.
that it's safe that we can put an agenda item on the next village board meeting?
I think to
for-
talk about it. I don't know if
Okay.
we'd be playing that presentation or not, but I think certainly we could talk about it.
I would hope that some type of impression would be conveyed at that
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, well then I will put that on for the next board meeting so that we can discuss that. Because there's there's some board members who don't really know anything about this and they don't know the ins and outs, so
And to be
what you can-
clear, and I guess to make, that I wouldn't expect them to, because it's been forming, but this meeting on the 12th is designed to educate all the interested board members and decision makers. And that's
And-
to get them in the know.
But the meeting is during the day, right? Not in the evening?
That is, it's 3
Yeah,
o'clock.
so
during the
that's gonna
day.
be hard for some people who have jobs. to be
And
able
where does
to-
that come from? And we're gonna be at Twin Lakes, and there's other meetings that they have to work around, and there's a deadline to get this grant. So it's how we ended up picking the day. So just to kind of give a little bit of background as to, there wasn't anything being done to
I'm not-
keep people out of the.
Saying anything like that. I'm just saying that it might be, so it would probably be a good idea to put it on our board meeting to discuss, right? Because there is the deadline looming and, I don't know that the village board, I would hope we could make a decision quickly in one meeting when all of the information is available. But just in case, it would be good to have some sort of an introduction to what it is that you've been working on. And maybe what the vision is for that, just so that people can start thinking about it.
Absolutely.
I do think some type of teams meeting after this might be a good idea, especially with staff, to discuss this. And there's going to be some things they may like or not like, and there may be workarounds or there may not be.
Right. Okay, so I will add that to our village board meeting on the 20th then. Is there anything else you want to add on that item?
Just that as many people that can attend would be best.
From the
Are
board.
they're
Monday.
gonna obviously post that notice?
Well, that would be the next thing. So that we would ask Sarah that we post it as possible, that a quorum
Yeah,
could
I thought
exist.
Tim was
I don't
sending
think-
out an invitation today.
We wouldn't be the ones posting it, would be Twin Lakes would have to post. it,
Well, we
right?
would have to post it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't send that out today. You didn't receive anything, Jay?
Okay. Okay. 6.3, further discussion into improved permitting policies to increase efficiency and enhance customer service, including whether the Wisconsin Innovation Grant would be available to use. So Pete, I know you've been working on this. Brian asked for this item to be included with the Wisconsin Innovation Grant, so we tied it all in one. And I guess I'll let you give the update on where you're at in the process, and Brian, maybe you can give an idea on what you thought the innovation grant how that would apply.
Okay, so we did do a very recent Teams meeting with Andy and Brad and Mike and Jay and myself, and we have everybody has some packets, printout packets. So if you could go to the one that has the zoning permit process documentation is the top one, and we and Andy's going to help lead us through that. But the other packets that you have are, let's see here. I think the single sheet, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, is the one that we have at our counter. So this is when people come from the village, whoever would like to build in our community, this is what it's handed to them, if they're interested in taking out a permit. And then we have two more stapled packets. And then one is directions for Village of Salem Lakes accessory structure permit submittal. And the other one is basically instructions as to how to go through and do the digital permit application. These instructions that you see here are digitally available. But it's just a printout for us to go through if we wanted to go through it. But ultimately, I think what we're going to go through here is the process itself, because that was the biggest interest of, is there ways that we can possibly streamline the permit process? Along those lines, Brad had some good ideas that we could possibly change our splash page on our village website. That could be maybe, I don't say user friendly, but maybe, and Andy brought up a great idea, make it really clear. This is where you'd click to go into the portal. If you need instructions, go here. If you really can't do this digitally and you want to do it in person, here's where you go, and they'll help you through it, and some improvements on that page to try and make it a little bit less confusing. And I'm trying to push from the concept of, you've never really gone for a permit before and it's a daunting process, and how can we make it feel less daunting kind of concept. So I guess with that, Andy, would you be so kind to kind of give us a little bit of an overview of, once somebody's at your counter, say, or they've filled it out online, kind of how the process works and that sort of deal?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So just a little history with that. In the document you have is like the document process, and there's actually a corresponding flow chart. And you don't have that for you because it's super huge, and so it's there on the screen. But to get it to you electronically, you'd be able to zoom in and see everything. But basically, this was done by us at the county, who handles permitting, which is the permitting through the village comes through in the same way as it does in other communities. And our IT department wanted us to document exactly how the workflow happens. Keep in mind that the permitting process now is basically all online. It may start out with a phone call, a person stopping in person, but it ends up leading to being online. And so some people find that automatically, others don't, and they need help getting there. And as like Pete said, is we have some documents that can help them navigate through that. The software is a nationwide software specifically for permitting. And if one goes in there, it walks you through the steps of everything you need to do. But again, we have the instructions if someone gets stuck on it. We haven't really experienced many people having difficulties walking through, and maybe some that have gotten permits online can state what their experience was. But from that, I mean, again, if someone calls or stops at the counter, or keep in mind, some people have difficulty even working through an online version. Okay. So with that, we would either send them a paper copy or a fillable permit application of which they can fill in. They would provide to us, maybe they email it to us, maybe they drop it off. And then our staff inputs the information, because everything's going to always have to be in the system. And the system is what's used to actually for people to pay and then for the information to be provided to be of the permit so that they can have a copy of it or print out a copy of it, so on. So this zoning permit process document really kind of walks through in detail of how the steps take place. So once the application is in by whatever various means it is, you know, it's going to then be looked at, and it looks very lengthy, but in most cases it's not that lengthy. But there's just some normal things that staff has to look at, like, is there a violation on the property? Does this property need a driveway access? Is this something that needs an address because it doesn't have an address, because like if it's a new home. So there's a number of series of questions that are going to be kind of asked up front that you see documented, and then those things will be dealt with as needed. But eventually you're going to get those answered and you're going to keep moving on. In some cases, like if it's a fence permit, you know, like you brush through all those questions and you're already on the review. On here, when we were doing this, we were not having building inspection as part of our process. That came a little later, but there is reference of when that takes place, because the initial review takes place, and then the way the permit system is set up, like if sanitation needs to be taken a look at, there is the ability to send a review to a reviewer. Like if a new home's coming in and it's not on sewer, well, septic is going to have to be looked at. So then the reviewer would send a notice to the sanitarian to look at, just like they'd send a notice to Public Works Highways Commissioner if they needed an access permit. And also now we have developed, which wasn't on here, that the building inspector gets notified if he needs to take a look at it, because some permits don't require a building permit. Most do in the village. In some of our other communities, it's not like that. So from that standpoint, you know, those reviews will then start taking place. And I think the other comment that I'll make too is that one of the things, besides kind of Pete saying now, is that we find people have difficulty is getting information up front sometimes, especially for people that aren't used to it. I mean, when we're working with contractors that do this every day, it's very simple, right? They've done this 100 times. For someone that's just doing it for one time and never again, sometimes they have difficulty kind of getting to where they need to be and navigating. That's where we were talking yesterday of how can we make the website a little more user friendly to understand, I need to click here, I need to click here for what they need to do. But also, what we also find is not everyone has all the information available once they apply for a permit. They're all antsy to get their permit. They apply, but they don't have their site plan, or they have one that they just drew up, you know, on a piece of paper and it's not even to scale. So then there's back and forth that would take place to be able to make sure that you get all the information in. So there is sometimes a long time lead from when someone applies until the application is fully complete. Once it's complete, then the review goes pretty quick. From statistics that we had, like when we met a couple months ago, I think Pete, you were there, and Rita, you were there. You were talking like 5 to 6 days for most permits are being issued. Have there been some outliers? Yeah, there's definitely been some outliers and some things where we didn't have the system in place, like commercially for some things with stormwater. Of how do we notify the engineer on this? You know, how do we stay in communication? How do we notify the fire chief? How do we stay in communication? So some of those things were a little clunky at first on some of those permits, but from a standpoint of, I think residentially, you know, fences, permits, garages, new homes and things like that, I think we've been pretty smooth from what I know. And again, we'll have to hear and listen for comment. But otherwise, if you look at this, you know, the staff will go through and then issue the permit. They'll contact the applicant by email that the review has been completed and that they can then go in and pay. And then once they pay, we get notified and then we can send the information to the applicant. I think a couple of things that we were looking at trying to implement this year in regards to building inspection is that the software has some tools that we've not really used before. And so we've worked over the last couple of months of trying to dig into them because there are some helpful tools. One of them, and we're not exactly sure about rolling this out, but one of them allows for people to go online and request an inspection. and the building inspector would be notified and automatically, and then the person selecting it can state that they want the inspection like in the morning or in the afternoon. And then the building inspector would be able to get those notices and kind of like, oh, I have 4 inspections in the morning, and he can map out which works best and things like that. So we're going to be working with the building inspector to implement that, because one, we think is going to be easier for him. And it's also going to be easier for the people that need the inspections. The other thing that we ended up implementing last year is after an inspection occurred, when the building inspector inputs that the inspection took place, there was a on button to automatically send an email to the property owner that the inspection did occur, because it seemed that there was difficulty of whoever was doing the work knowing that the inspection took place if they weren't out on site. And then they would call, and then there would be some lag. It's like, hey, were you out? Were you not out? And then there was some back and forth and things. So in this case, as soon as the button's pressed on the software, the email goes out that the inspection took place. So those were a couple of things that we implemented, and I think there's some other little ones that we're going to keep testing to see if we can, make things a little better. But I guess I'd be open to hear and answer any questions. And again, the process is built into the software, so it's not really something that we're doing. I think some of the things that get added in are non-software things, like when we have to reach out to the engineer or the fire chief, and we have to work, and stormwater, and work, at the same time on different things.
Is that program the Tyler program by chance?
No, it's the Community Development Track It program.
Development tracking. Okay. And so you kind of hit on something there. We're talking about a couple different things, right? We have residential and we have commercial, and you touched on something that I think it's worth mentioning, that not too long ago on commercial, maybe things were not necessarily where they could go to 4 different, say, people or agencies or engineers all to do their separate reviews. And it was kind of maybe doing more linear instead of manifold, for lack of a better term. But sounds like some of those changes have recently taken place where now multiple agencies that can review that aren't dependent upon other ones, or maybe the fire chief, for example, fire chief and stormwater, and that they could take a look at the project
Concurrently,
simultaneously,
right?
versus before
Right.
maybe there was some linear path being
Correct.
taken. Yeah, so that's great to hear that that's already been put into place. So I guess with this presentation here, what it's like, some of us have some personal experiences with working through permit program. What I was kind of hoping for staff, as well as this as a team effort here, to try and see if we can identify some items that what could be changed. And it sounds like on the front end, from an instruction aspect, splash pages, that there's maybe some room for improvement there. Anything else kind of come to mind here?
When people go on to submit electronically, are they creating like a username and password where they can go in and see the status?
Correct.
Okay.
That happens right now, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
The other thing that I'm wondering if it might help some is, maybe do we get a station here in our lobby with, an iPad or something where they can go on and apply if they come here, so that they don't have to then go home and do it, or, okay.
So I'm glad to hear that some changes have taken place on the commercial end. Obviously, I have a lot of experience in permitting, and probably the number one thing that I see as an issue is communication, especially more on the commercial. It does seem like that lacks. I have many incidents of emails that are not responded to. I try to be proactive, that if somebody sends me an email, I respond back, whether, it's information that's immediate, or whether or not I'm going to have to talk to the engineer and then submit that. But it does seem like that's an area that maybe we could strive to do a little better to make sure that the email's been received, it's understood what was received. Because it does seem like the delay period is sometimes weeks. And I don't think that's an inviting thing. I have no doubt that Andy and Ben they know their business, and that's not the issue. The issue is, how do we strive to make it easier on the permit applicant? Obviously, contractors know this stuff a lot better than the typical homeowner, and we just have to figure out ways to make it easier. I'm sure the idea of having an iPad here that Brad will have to nurse somebody through that process is probably not very inviting, but it may be necessary. Because I'm sure we have folks that.
Well, there's
could be-
some people who don't have,
Correct.
right?
It's challenging.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend trying to file for permits on your iPhone. It's too difficult, because I don't do that. I would recommend doing it on a laptop. It's good to hear that we're making these changes. To kind of piggyback into, my thoughts on the innovation grant. I think as this village is eager to do some development projects, I think that looking forward, we're going to leave a lot of permitting costs that we could benefit from on the table. And I think, I'm not saying today or tomorrow, but we should start looking at how we could create a permitting consortium of such that would bring permitting, which is very similar to what we're doing with the county. So that we might be able to join many different communities to be able to facilitate permitting and zoning. It's not to say that Kenosha County is doing a bad job. My concern is that they have limited resources, and as development grows, that may become more and more challenging. And I don't know, maybe Andy, you can add on that as far as Justin or Ellis willing to expand their business to adapt to possibly a lot more permits. And then that gets into a little bit, and I don't know if I even want to bring this up, is that there's some changes at the state level, especially on the commercial, that we're going to have to take a look at how we're going to address that with the specialized inspections, and make sure we're not creating duplicity issues. But I don't think we need to discuss that today. Just what do you think as far as with Justin and Ellis? Do they have the ability to grow if need be?
Well, I mean, I think, that would require additional staff on their end. And I think that's a decision that we all have to talk through, is based on volume. Where is the volume going with the permitting here in the village? I mean, we have that information, but I would say, yeah, I mean, if permitting goes up, even maybe a little bit to us, it could be a point of he needs to try to find some additional help.
I would agree. I think that is my concern. So that's why I think communities maybe should at least look at this. And people are like, well, what does that have to do with economic development? It's critical that people that come here to build, that we have an inviting process through permitting, because you would be surprised how many builders will go somewhere else where the process is so much simpler. They're in the business of efficiencies, and you may have great property and great land, but if that process is so difficult, they won't choose this location first. And so that's why I think it's something that at least should be looked at. I'm not saying that we go that direction. Obviously, it's a discussion that needs with Ellis and Justin of, what ability do they have to expand? Ellis is a commercial inspector. I don't know if Justin is going to expand his credentials so that he can, cover a bigger spectrum of inspections. I don't know what the plan is there, but it's stuff that we got to look at, because otherwise we start getting a bunch of commercial development going and a lot of projects. I can see it having a lot of issues.
And I guess just for this committee is, from a county perspective on the permitting and with building inspection, we wish the innovation grant was like 3 years earlier, because we already did this.
Well, right.
I mean, we're doing this with the building inspector, Justin is doing, and us through our permitting, we're doing it for Brighton, Paris, and the village. And we've talked about this for some other communities as well. and some other communities have talked to us because, well, quite frankly, getting a building inspector is difficult. There are not many out there.
It's very,
And so that's why we ended up as a county kind of coming into this situation because it seemed like it was a way to solve the problem that was occurring. And we know that the few remaining building inspectors that are in Kenosha County, they're getting close to retirement. And so this whole aspect may just expand more so. And so again, trying to have potentially one location with several building inspectors, like, you know, with the integration grant is trying to do, might be the way to go because some of the communities, they cannot have a building inspector, they don't have enough work, right? And so the building inspector would need many communities to make it worthwhile. Well, we're consolidating it all in one place rather than, you know, 2 counties away, they might have a community and then another county away, they have another community. So that definitely is an area to continue to pursue.
yeah, I think if the county is willing to grow with the communities, and that's the challenge there, and like you said, it's hard to find building inspectors, especially ones that are knowledgeable in a lot, commercial and residential. So looking forward for all these surrounding communities, it is going to be a challenge as some of these projects that are potentially going to come online it could create a lot of logjam issues, and we don't want that.
Right. For sure. Sorry to jump in here. One thing came up, listening to you guys going back and forth and thinking about something you said previously, where say a homeowner turned in some of the things, but you're waiting on some components to be able to move it forward. Now, before I mention that idea, you once you have everything is when you actually calculate the fee and charge the for the permit fee. Is that right? So this whole process up until you have everything, you haven't charged anything yet
Correct. Yeah, the fee is paid at the end.
at the end. So I'm kind of wondering, and maybe this is in the program and there's a way to activate this tool, or maybe you'd have to reach out to the developer for a build out. But I wonder, is there value to both on inside, say for Ben, because he represents us, takes care of our stuff, and then for the applicant, for like a tickler reminder email, hey, it's been 2 weeks, we haven't heard from you, and the next things that we need are XYZ. Might even be able to autofill. I don't know if that's built into the program or not, but kind of like in email, you'd have that task reminder, some kind of concept like that.
Yeah, I'd have to check it in. I'm not sure. Like I said, it's a pretty robust program, and when we have issues, we dig into it to find if there's solutions already there. That would be one I'd have to check into, Pete.
But it seems like if that might not hurt, at least on the, you guys know what you're waiting for and what comes next, and it's what you do, but that homeowner might think, oh,
I mean, typically, right, when this happens, an email is sent with all the information of what's needed. And then we leave it in pretty much in a sense, the applicants, it's in their court, right? To then get back to us with everything on that. I mean, in fact, this last fall, we needed to go out and do some inspections on permits where people applied and they never came back, right, to get them. And we were wondering, like, well, did they actually do it?
Sure.
And then the other is, well, then did they not? Because then we want to kill the permit. Otherwise, it's still sitting there and it's always in our inbox, like, hey, this one's been sitting here for 6 months. Well, if they're not going to do the permit anymore, we want to kill the permit. But if the permit's sitting there and they actually went ahead with the work, well, now it's a violation.
Right. So I wonder if okay, maybe rethinking through my idea, if you, as I know you guys send that email, hey, this is what we're waiting for next, to be able to just some kind of a reminder that you haven't seen
I'll look into
anything,
that.
that maybe you could use the task manager actually related to that project through the email program to just resend the email and go, just a reminder. And if you're still moving forward, please submit these. If you're not, let us know so we can close out this task, and that might help you on that end too, to clean that up.
Right. And I know in this case, when we did do a review, I think Ben ran a report to find out what all permits were still just hanging out there. And then he sent out emails, not through the program, but he did them individually just for that very purpose, because we didn't want to go driving around to more properties than what we needed to. Some people came back, some people didn't, but I'll check to see if there's something in there.
Okay.
So Andy, I see here that it says that the they pay the fee online. Is there an in-person option?
Yes, they can come in and come in with a check and
Okay.
then we just go ourselves online and enter it in and cash it through our check system.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they do have that option. Okay.
And we have it where a person can pay with a credit card at our office too. We have a reader
Okay.
that can happen as well.
All right. I know some people get a little goofy about paying online.
Mhm. That is true.
Okay.
They can mail in a check as well.
Okay. One of the things that we talked about in the meeting that we had with you, I think it was in August, if I'm not mistaken, was trying to help the communication on who does what. So I think that's also what we need to be thinking about too, as we go through this on, what is the village's responsibility, what's the county's responsibility, and how can we better communicate that? So, maybe when we get some answers to some of these questions, we can start thinking through that, maybe we need to have something on our board outside that just says, if you need this, here's what you do, or something, simple. Cause I know we talked about that sometimes the county was didn't feel, you were getting the brunt of things that maybe you felt
Correct. So
in it.
what ends up being a little difficult for the citizenry is that when they hear the county or they see me or see Ben, they reflect the county, but we're really working for the village. And
Right.
so there is a separation. I mean, we're working completely for the village and it's through the village that everything is handled. But people sometimes feel that when they need to reach out, they'll reach out around the village. And so that's the communication that we were talking about of how to
Yeah.
better consolidate people going through the village, with us as working for the village as, contractors.
Right. Okay.
I'd like to add one more thing. Is it possible, and you may already do this, for potential residents to come in and to get their permit, that you have an early assist where you'll sit down with them, look at their property with them and kind of outline all the concerns and issues so that they have a better understanding of what's expected of them?
Yeah, many times that occurs when someone starts out just like wondering what can they do, is we typically many times have conversations either just on the phone or I'll set up a meeting. Ben will set up meeting, people come in and they'll walk through uh typically when it's a little more difficult. And then even when it's like super difficult, then we push them right to our bi-monthly meetings that we have here at the village on Thursdays. Many times it's for developments, but sometimes it's not, just because I mean, we had that one with the fence that was just a really odd situation on where with the lot lines and where you could do a 6-foot fence and where you could do a 4-foot fence. And we had to really work through that. And we worked with Ramsey actually to come up with a solution. But so that does happen.
Yeah, because I remember in the past that that was a feature of the county. You would go in their back room and work with the planner to coordinate that permit process.
Yeah, and then from usually with the commercial stuff is some things that didn't happen because of us coming in kind of partway through of projects that were previously approved and then us kind of picking them up. But from start to finish, there's always going to be a pre-development meeting. So that's the meeting where we all sit down and go through everything and lay out timelines, what needs to be submitted, when, what meetings and things like that. So that usually is kind of like the start for new projects, bigger projects.
I'm kind of wondering, and I'm gonna don't want to get excited here, but in Lake County, every single project actually gets a lead. So and the lead is at the permit counter, right? And that lead then takes responsibility for that interaction on that project with that party. And so in this case here, like Ben's always is who's assigned to the village of Salem Lakes and anything that happens within it. But then the next step is that every project goes through an early assistance meeting. And I'm just wondering, instead of people asking, okay, can you help me kind of work through this? If there's value in something like Brian mentioned, where automatically we say, would you like to come in for an early assistance meeting to go over and create, what comes out of those are a grocery list of, you're going to need your plot of survey to scale, you're going to need this. So, and when they, and what they do at those meetings, and maybe they could coincide with, hey, your early assistance will be part of this bi-monthly Thursday deal, show up here or whatever. They, so in that case, it was like working at the county level, right? So it could involve public works, or it could involve the health department if it was a septic, and then that sanitarian would attend, and everybody would come together, and that's how they, that was kind of the crux, or how they came up with the creation of their permit center. And so I just wonder, are there some improvements that maybe we could make for that? Hey, we're going to do this early assistance meeting. We'll call the people that we believe are going to need to be part of it. And then the person can pitch their project, and then they can be given that lead at the counter is then tasked with creating the list of things that are needed to come back with and that need to be done. And so now that person leaves with a very clear path of what they need to do. And every single time, there's always language that says, based on what's turned in, additional requirements may be applied. So it's not like it's setting anything in stone, but it's at least given the current request on project, this is what's known that you need to come back with.
Yeah, and currently we really are doing that. So on those Thursday meetings, when it's not like your typical run-of-the-mill permits, where you pretty much can handle that through the phone, email, or again, some people do come in and walk through and need to get that. But on the bigger projects, we do that Thursday, because after that meeting, Ben sends out an email with a laundry list of everything that they need to do. And then, then it's on their end to be able to come back to us when they've started ticking those things off the list.
We will meet with them a second or third time, even if.
Oh, sure, sure. I'm just wondering, maybe the difference here of what I'm hearing that you do, commercial standard, residential if asked, and I'm just wondering, is there value, whether it's our splash page on our website, or when they hit the county level, if there's value to just say, would you like an early assistance meeting, or do you think you got a handle on what you need? I'm just throwing that out there as
Yeah, at least from what I understand, unless someone else has a different experience, I think we're getting that, because pretty much a phone call is usually what starts the process, where someone has an idea of wanting to do something and general information can be shared. But if it goes beyond that, then typically that's when we set up a meeting to then lay it all out. Right. And then we go from there. And like Brad said, sometimes we can handle it all in one meeting. Sometimes it might take 2 meetings. Not really more usually, I think, for people. Usually after the second one, they pretty much have everything together at that point to then be able to move forward.
Yeah.
Brad, you're not involved in every permit that we do, are you?
No, not the over the
No,
counter stuff.
I would think so. It just, the good old days, we remember when you walked in and showed your plan and walked out with the permit. I guess some of those permits could still be achieved, and it could be done online. with roofing and siding and stuff like that, but.
Yeah. So, everything really changed when COVID happened. So at that time, us at the county level, we were looking at trying to find a better way to be assisting to the public. Because for the most part, who really wants to come in on a work day or take time off while we are, because we're not working after hours. And so we were looking at trying to get online permitting started at that time, but then COVID forced us, right, to do that. And pretty much the general public switched, right, in so many different ways. And now we're in that whole realm of being able to do that. And there are some automatic permits that you just have to pretty much apply and you get your permit and pay for it.
But you could do the online version.
Right. Right. And for roofing and siding and things like that, that does occur. So
I guess the only thing that comes to mind is, are there like low level permits that we're willing to maybe take back and do here at Village Hall? Like, and just to throw that out there as a
We
step.
don't have staff right now to do that. That's the problem.
Understood, but
Right.
I'm just saying, as in to move towards.
Oh, I agree. I
You're-
think that's maybe a good goal to have.
Right. So where I was gonna go with that is like maybe, could, so like I say, maybe look at some different concepts of things that maybe, what does it look like for staffing that we could take on X, Y, Z, and could it be, we feel like we could do fence permits or driveway permits or whatever it may be, and then maybe driveways we already do. But are there some things that that we could bring back into house that are low level, reasonably quick review that can fit with current staff, or if we need to add some staff, and is there some value to that? Just as maybe a something to consider, because in the long term, at some point, do we, we've talked about before, Andy, you guys are currently taking care of our permitting, but at some point, does it come back home for permitting and planning, right? And so what does that look like?
Okay. Yeah, I think we can look at that. Maybe not for this year. We have a contract, obviously, but you know, we can, once Mike gets his feet wet, maybe work on if that would be something we could do. And how would that work if we did some and not others, right? That might be more confusing. I don't know. All right, well, for the sake of time, I want to move on to the next two items. 6.4, 2026 Kenosha County Highway W Improvement Project, assigned member to gather information. So we all know this is due to start. I'm not quite sure when. I haven't gotten an update on this or heard anything on it in a while. And I know that it's going to affect downtown Wilmot, everyone that lives there and all the businesses. Oh, excuse me. We had talked about parking, all of that. So that I do feel that that does belong here in this group because it is going to affect the businesses. And is there some ideas that we have that, and can we be the information providers to the public on what those timelines are, what's going to happen? Do we have someone from the county come in and do a presentation? So what do you guys think?
My first thought is I don't think we want to be specifically the disseminator of
Not all of it.
timelines.
I agree, but we can give updates, right?
And I don't know if that's would really be a function of the EDC in those regards. I think what would happen is, because I kind of asked about this when we had a site walk through out there and talked about the parking issues.
Right.
And it seems like this Highway W project is going to be administered through a state agency. And originally, going back to the 3 years ago when they were pitching it, that there was quite a bit of promise. Oh, there's going to be weekly updates available that then would
Right.
get emailed to the communities. And if you signed up for the village email, that's kind of think like from a dissemination aspect, anybody who signed up for village email, it could automatically be sent out. But then the last time I asked about it, it was they would hope they could help give us updates, and it actually went backwards a little bit. And so just being straight up and being honest with the information that I received, so that would be definitely helpful if we were to reach out and go, we want to just be able to clearly identify, because here's what's happening on their end with the construction project, right? They're having at least weekly meetings of what's coming up, and they're staging things, right? So they've got a semi-accurate picture of 30 days out, and then a slightly clearer 15, and pretty clear the next 7. And so all I was trying to accomplish was, how do we get the information of the week look ahead, and just, even if it changes, there's a rainstorm, whatever, this is what they were hoping to do in the next week. It's going to close this section of road. And so I would say probably need to reach out to Samantha and Mr. I think it's Bolton, the supervisor.
Right.
What's the name, sir?
Greg Bolt.
Greg Bolt. Yeah. And just, even they are going to be subject to how the state handles the project. So they're not going to be directly calling the shots, I think, is kind of the problem. If it's a problem, to get that detailed information. So I would say that that'd be our best shot, is to ask the county if they've clarified how we might be able to get that. Again, at that time we had that meeting, the project hadn't been bid yet. I don't think it hadn't been. And so
When is it supposed to start? Pretty soon, right?
I can't remember the dates.
Hasn't been.
It's going to impact the fairness.
And a lot of discussion was had that going all the way back when Clement was the guy in charge, that, oh yeah, we'll recognize that this is Fair Week, and that put something in the specs that they know that they have to keep certain things open. And if I don't know, but I suspect that some of that might have fallen off the table. Those focuses, I hope not.
Yeah.
But we can certainly reach back out and see what they can let us know. But they're not gonna have their people doing the project, so it's gonna be hard to get that
Yeah,
information.
I just think that, you know, we're gonna be the ones getting the complaints, right? Because that's what people do, and it's gonna affect our businesses and our residents. So,
Yeah, I feel that's a board deal.
I was hoping everybody would be on their best behavior today.
Oh, you hope you know I'm joking.
So I guess I'm gonna ask for someone to volunteer to try to get more information on that, and maybe you know, we can try to work with someone to come in and do a presentation on what they're going to be doing, what their proposed timelines are fairly soon. And, you know, and thinking about that, that kind of goes with the next agenda item, which is business retention and recruitment. Like, this is going to affect the businesses there. So is there ideas that, you know, or something that we could help with to help make that a little bit less painful? And my thought on that was, at least if we got information, because we're not getting any information. I tried to find some and I couldn't last week. So yeah.
So to your first question, I'll be happy to volunteer.
Okay.
And then secondly, we did have Mr. Bolt here.
That was some months ago.
It was some months ago, so
Yeah.
I'm
Now
wondering,
that it's getting closer, I feel like, you know,
I'm just gonna say, do you think it's a good idea that we ask them to maybe come and give
Yeah.
like an updated presentation
absolutely.
of what's gonna happen?
Mhm.
And then maybe maybe they could share the contacts. It might turn into where there's a state person that
Mhm.
they don't really have a whole lot of control over, but we could at least get the
Yeah.
email.
Cause I know when he was here, we talked about the parking, right? And how that they were taking all of it in Wilmot, all of it. I don't know if the plan has changed. I know that they were doing public meetings earlier on, but I haven't seen anything,
It's pretty much sense. I'll be.
right?
Here, so I think whatever plan is. I don't think it's much different than what when you did your walk.
Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
cause I don't know if anything's changed or not. So I guess that's why I put this on, was to try to see if we could
It's gonna
do something.
So I guess you'd say to talk about what may or may not have changed, I'm gonna say the things we were focused on, right, was number of parking spaces we were losing, right?
We talked about the fair and
talked-
trying not to disrupt
That's
that.
fair. So, you know, I'll reach out. I know that we're not certainly getting less parking spaces removed, and they explained in the walkthrough, and to just share that a little bit was right now everybody kind of pulls up to the stop sign, say it's C&W, right? And then they turn. Well, they're going to actually kind of create a separate lane all the way, you could say, to the right. And then there's a reason for certain distances that they explain, like because they have to accommodate for like a 50+ foot semi and trailer, and to be able to all the way get into that lane. And so that's where there's some real reasons behind why the design landed that the way that
Yeah.
it did. But as far as any changes from any of that, I doubt it. There was one time going to be a stoplight at C&W, and then that's, I think, no longer. I don't think there's any stoplights in there now. Again, they, you know, if they've made changes, we haven't been made.
We
no-
talked about asking not to allow trucks, if there was a way we could try to reroute them
So when I did
permanently.
bring that up at the time, and I guess I want to be cautious here exactly how far I go with it, but the reception of it didn't seem like it was getting past that ask at that moment in time. So
Yeah.
there would be if there was anything, would be if anybody was available to try and see. And what Rita's referring to is a lot of trucks come through downtown Wilmot, right? They come right through that stop sign.
A lot of gravel trucks.
Gravel trucks, delivery trucks, and they're not doing any kind of commerce within the village of Salem Lakes. It's a pass through. Some people believe, and I don't know this to be true, but I suspect it to be, that there's a way to get around scales, right? We always hear about trucks trying to, maybe they know they're heavy, so they don't want to get weighed. Is that happening? I don't know it, but there's a suspicion. And all that traffic, right, beats apart the roads quicker that they're going to be repairing. And so the request was, hey, can we explore the possibility of a business route through Wilmot and then a truck route? Well, it's important for the people of Village of Salem Lakes to understand these roads aren't ours. These are county and state in some cases. And so it can only really be a request on our part. We can't make a demand that this happens. So that's what we're kind of leaning towards here. And if that were to happen, boys, it kind of changed things up. Just right. But if you
Yeah.
stand there, I would say, sure, during this construction season, are a lot of them gravel trucks for sure, but are a lot of them just like, reefers and cargo and that sort of thing?
Mhm.
Absolutely. And what is that specifically? Why is that happening? Who knows? But anyhow, so as a separate issue, any one of us that, we would plead that to the county. And I don't know if that would be an individual or a group
Yeah.
request, or maybe we make a recommendation to the Village of Salem Lakes Board to officially write a
Mhm.
letter
To a
requesting
resolution.
a resolution, requesting that they explore a truck route workaround kind of thing.
Yeah.
That maybe that's the answer on that one.
We had talked about that
Well-
empty lot for parking too, and I'm not
bring
quite
that up.
sure where. I know in our budget, we did not have the money to purchase that lot to make it a parking lot. But I think that, maybe we just get some more information and see if we,
Yeah, because
if there's
Nate said
anything we
he'd
can-
want to make that available for parking.
correct.
Yeah, Nate being the current owner of the lot.
Would
is
that be a
interested.
county or a Salem Lakes
Well,
purchase?
So we kind of worked through that already.
Okay.
And it would be, it'd be us coming up with that lot. The county would not be able to help us with that. We worked through that last season. There might be some other ancillary things they could help us with, but we wouldn't want to expect any of that. Ultimately, the current owner of the parcel that could be the only parking lot in Wilmot is interested in making sure it becomes a parking lot. We need to A, come up with the funds, B, come up with
We need to pave it.
philanthropic person to buy it and give it to us, and then
And
eventually
pave it.
plan to
Because you
pave
want to
it.
develop it at the same time this is all
Correct.
going down.
Well, you would. And whether it was the same time or whether it was after because of the timeline, we're getting a bit of a crunch at this point, but it would be nice.
And the only thing I want to add about the amount of traffic is there's a bridge there. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why the gravel trucks have to go that way. I mean, there's
There's only so many routes.
yeah, but
That's
got to cross the
the problem.
river.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Pete, you'll take this on.
Yep.
And
Reach
try
out.
to see if you can get a little bit more information.
Specifically, so I'll start with trying to see what that path to getting updated, whether that's weekly,
Yeah.
bi-weekly schedules that we could then send out to all email subscribers.
Yeah, if we're
Um,
4 months out, I mean,
Yeah.
right, there might be some businesses who maybe don't know about this. I'm not sure that there would be, but maybe. So
Has the village ever talked to Nate about what it would cost to,
we did,
Okay.
and we tried to put it in the budget. We just didn't have it.
I didn't know if it was talked about. Okay.
It's it's not cheap, obviously, and paving is not cheap, so,
There's obtaining and then there's developing and
yeah.
yeah, and there was some concepts at the time, well, not just that, but then could we create some diagonal parking? So basically trying to come up with some kind of, I'm gonna use the word solution, not a complete solution, but we have a business district there, right? Zone B2 and a lot of that, and then you have business first floor and residential second floor. And if we could develop some more parking there, some of that could grow. The zoning already exists,
Yeah.
And so there could be some possibilities there.
Okay. Right, number 6.5, business retention and recruitment. Ideas?
I can take a look in this and bring some concepts to the committee and see if
Okay.
they have merit and if they can get approved to go forward. Go broad base to begin with, but I can take some responsibility for that.
All right, this would be outside of the business park, so, right, so,
I think this is an area that, there's a lot of things happening in the village that Brennerfield, I think there's some opportunities there for some things to happen that potentially may lead to possibly some type of developments, possibly, some utilities possibly, and I think that's an area that we should focus because the village doesn't have water, and it's a key component to any kind of large development. And I think it's something that we should be looking at least and see if there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I'm not talking about housing. I know that one's housing really with a small commercial in the front.
District, there'll be commercial.
But, like our downtown Tree or downtown Salem, Silver Lake. And I know that, the zoning with Von Briesen should be starting in about 2 months, we said. So that way Mike could get familiar with things and then those will be, the EDC will be part of that, the Plan Commission will be part of that, and the board will be part of that, and the public will be part of that. So I think, but any ideas that this committee could come up with, and especially with business, helping to retain the businesses that we do have. Could be helpful. Yeah. Yep. So, and those ideas, Jeff, could, when we start having those meetings, we could give those, as, have it be part of those.
Well, I kind of think that the business retention is best served by this committee talking, and then also from the businesses themselves getting together.
Yeah.
And talking, and maybe an invitation to them downstream. I can bring that idea. The recruitment, I think, is can be a little bit broader and something that we can also impact.
Mhm.
So,
And that might even, we could look at different grants maybe that are available, I know, like Antioch did a really nice job with their downtown, and I believe that you might know this, that the village helped with some of doing the facades, right? And they're, by giving them money, I don't know where they got that money from. I don't know if that was from grant. Okay, so, but are there grants that maybe we could try to see if they're available to help make it look more inviting, right? So,
I mean, I think the downtown Salem area, being that we're entertaining activities, redevelopment, I think might be something to take a look at.
right.
Work well.
And I wonder too, if, kind of reconvening with CABA, if this is
Yep.
about, I mean, that's our driver right
Mhm.
there. So
Mhm.
if they understand what we're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
that actually can go to bat for us,
Yep.
but
Okay,
Different though, but we don't have that downtown village.
we do not, no. Yeah,
We have
that's hard.
But I
All
think
right.
there's opportunity.
There is, and there's opportunities in Silver Lake as well, and then, the, we're moving, tonight on our agenda is the rezone, I believe, right, of the old, Silver Lake Village Hall that we're looking at renting out, so, what kind of businesses could go into there? And that also has the fire department behind there, that building, well, we need to generate revenue, right? And it's going to bring life to downtown a little bit, so. Right. So those are some things like, what could be done with those buildings? Brad, I guess we'll talk about this at our meeting, but, and I don't know, just give me a yes or no. Are we looking at, possibly being able to rent them out separately? Or is it just as one? I can't remember.
I didn't hear, I didn't hear the first part.
It was about the Silver Lake Village Hall and the fire station.
We're looking at renting out the Silver Lake Village Hall.
Right. And the fire station eventually when we move. Yes.
Yeah.
So it could be two separate.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay, great. All right. So yeah, start thinking about that. And if, and I like your idea about reconnecting with CABA to see if they have any ideas and if they've got any, and if there's any grants that we could look at. All right, 6.6, approve meeting minutes from December 2nd, 2025. Sarah handed you all a copy.
Make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks.